So, good day everybody who's watching this. I am Aino Kianto, Professor of Knowledge Management in the School of Business and Management in Lappeenranta University of Technology. And today I have the immense pleasure and honor to interview Professor Tsui from Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Not only is Eric an established and well-recognized scholar who's teaching knowledge management issues worldwide, he also has an extensive experience in developing and implementing knowledge management in different kinds of organizations. So it's a pleasure to have you here in Lappeenranta with us, Eric.
Professor Kianto, thank you very much for inviting me here.
And I would like to discuss with you several issues related with our mutual field of research and development, knowledge management. So if we start with one of the, I think, key questions of our field, how would you define knowledge management?
Well, the first question, how to define knowledge management? In fact, my belief is when you get to know more about knowledge, it's very difficult, almost impossible to define. To me, KM at best is to provide an environment through a set of activities that allowed, for example, situated information to generate knowledge so that people can make decisions, people can solve problems, and people can generate value for organizations. Because we all know that knowledge is situated information, knowledge is interpreted information, knowledge is contextual. So it is not a tangible thing that we can put into a tin can or something like that. It has to be cultivated with an environment, with a context.
Yeah. So you think that managing knowledge, this is a different business from managing tangible resources?
Well, very different. It's more like managing, as I said, the environment, so that the knowledge can be as easily reviewed as possible, can be shared, and can be analyzed for operational gains.
Our field, knowledge management, it's a very multidisciplinary academic field and discussion. Different researchers have their background in information studies, in organizational psychology, in library sciences, and so on. So we really have many different approaches to managing knowledge in organizations. So how would you see the key approaches within our field?
Great question. In my own research, I've identified that clearly there are three strands of research into KM. The first one is the IT and systems approach, whereby we apply technologies to automate, to analyze, to orchestrate services, to add value to organizations. The second one is about the humanistic approach. Process and culture-oriented, people-oriented as well. How do we actually discover how to connect people with common interest? How do we actually enable people, who have expertise to share their valuable knowledge with other people who are seeking to have that piece of knowledge? And the third one, a third reminder from the recent insurgence of big data is through the accumulation and analysis of data, we can also derive information and ultimately, of course, discovery of knowledge. So these three, to me, represent the key pillars for the KM initiatives and the framework.
Thank you, Eric. Yes. And why should an organization embark on the knowledge management journey?
Well, I think it's easier to answer compared to the previous two questions. I think management principle tells us that for organizations to win and to excel, basically they have to look at value propositions. Now, common principles led us to believe that there are three value propositions. One is customer intimacy, another one is product or service leadership, and the third one is operational efficiency. So, for example, if we talk about operational efficiency, if an organization is not achieving its goals in an efficient and economical way, surely they will lose out. They will lose out very badly to the competitors. So KM can help them to better know about the operational gains, the bottlenecks, the areas that they can improve, so that incrementally they can improve on the operations and also execute their processes in an economical fashion. Second one is the product and service leadership. And that's even more important. These days, all organizations, well, not all, but most of them are going globalization. And under that banner, they will find that many of their offices and staff are distributed in various offices in different regions. Yet, they have to deliver high-quality products, competitive products with local service delivery. And that requires collective wisdom, collaborations among the good souls of the company. Right, and the third one is customer intimacy. So once again, assuming that you have customers all over the world, you are struggling to generate, a holistic view of what your customer knows, or what you know about your customer, and how you best serve your customer. So scattered knowledge, scattered opinion about a customer is not going to do the company any good. So therefore, under the doctrine of KM, there are principles and practices that help organizations to harness, the local knowledge gained from various offices with a customer, and then holistically combine to compose the total, view of a customer for the company. So all those things, I think, convincingly answer the question that companies sure need KM and good KM.
Oh yeah, so it really sounds like KM has manifold benefits for
Absolutely, I would say that it's it's a central plank of business operation. We don't even need to single out and talk about it. It should be fully permeated into business operations.
Oh yes. And how is this actually achieved in practice? So what in your extensive experience would be some of the most useful practical tools and mechanisms for implementing knowledge management?
Okay, well, I can talk about some of the commonly used tools, whether they are, definitely useful for organizations or not. I suppose that's dependent on each case, right? So again, going back to the tools I've been talking about earlier, or the framework, we can separate into two types of tools. One type of tool is the people and the process oriented. And in that category, we have, for example, very common among project-based organizations, after project review, after implementation review, after action review, also lessons learned inventory databases, best practice repositories, knowledge cafe to share ideas and suggestions among staff, bottom-up input. And on the other hand, in technology-driven side of KM, we see commonly deployed collaboration tools, portals, Web 2.0 knowledge sharing initiatives like instant messaging, and many others being used in organizations to help foster the elicitation and sharing of knowledge.
And in practice, do you find that in fact every organization has sort of their idiosyncratic combination of the different tools available? Or are there some kind of stable packages that a typical one type of organization would typically be using?
Well, definitely I think to do this right, organizations will have to assess their own unique situation and their stage and readiness for the KM journey. And by that, then, needless to say, there has to be a customized and individual solution for each organization. Now that said, these days, most of the so-called KM solutions, especially the technological oriented ones, they are basically off-the-shelf packages. So therefore, on the other hand, we also see that many organizations are adopting a common set of vendor-provided tools with local customizations to suit their need.
Oh yes. And how should an organization interested in knowledge management begin the process of implementing it?
Okay, well, that's a very interesting question. I like to expand that a little bit more. In my experience, I find that many organizations, they don't know anything about KM, but in fact, they are led into the KM journey because of some difficulties, should I say, difficulties in searching, difficulties in organization of the documents and information, right? I think it's common to assume that the larger the organizations, the more likely you have communications barrier. The larger the organizations, the more tangible assets, documents, and content you have generated, and therefore, without proper systematic classification, naturally you would have a growing problem of searching and retrieving. And we find that that is, I always use this term called an easy entry point for organizations to consider, to implementing KM. Another one is, it's a global phenomenon. The baby boomers retirement syndrome after the Second World War, typically from 1945 to 1960, a lot more babies in proportion are being born. And if you add 60 to 65 years to that band, we are right in the middle of that retirement age era. So that means that the world has never seen such a higher proportion of people retiring before, and without additional measures to, in fact, early measures to start harnessing the knowledge of the would-be departing employees, many organizations are at a loss as to how to carry on and maintain their quality and excellence in business. So these and more, I believe, are natural entry points for KM into organizations.
And then once the need for knowledge management is realized due to facing some of these big problems in an organization, what then could be or should be done?
Well, again, that's also a typical and difficult question as well. In my past experience, I find that it would be nice if we can find some avalanchists, people who are passionate about KM, and put them in key roles. They may not be very senior roles, but at least key roles that can inspire other people to join the journey, right? And look for existing problems and issues that are already being tackled, or they're already hurting the organization, put it this way. Look for low-hanging fruits. And these things and more possibly can add more ease in helping the organization to launch into the journey. Now, launching into the journey is one thing. Sustaining the journey is a different matter.
Oh, yes. Oh, this is a very interesting idea that passionate change agents are needed in the organization.
Yes, sometimes they are called knowledge champions or knowledge brokers in some of the companies that I have worked with.
Oh, yeah. And how can we cultivate such passionate knowledge agents or knowledge champions?
Lead by example, collect success stories, sell the success stories, and demonstrate by example. I encourage my client companies to, for example, produce news stories to market their success, even whatever mini success that is, and show to people that, in fact, that works. I encourage them to employ the knowledge ambassadors and knowledge champions, and in fact, equip these people with more advanced knowledge about the KM journey, so that when they return to the workplace, they can often help their colleagues whenever they hear something consciously or subconsciously about anything that their colleagues need in terms of KM. So they will swing around and grab a chair and work with their colleagues. And I find that that's quite useful and constructive in helping the organization to move along incrementally and positively.
All right, so sharing the successes.
Sharing successes and plant seeds to multiply the infiltration.
Wonderful, yeah. And now if we return to think about the overall development of knowledge management as a field, as a practical field, but also as an academic field, how do you see the overall temporal development of this field? What have been the key achievements of knowledge management so far?
Well, my view is, while there are both research and practice going on, they don't seem to overlap a lot, unfortunately. Up to now, I'm led to believe that, for example, in academic research, a lot of people working on fostering trust, a lot of people working on the technical side of building the intelligence systems and agents, but I haven't seen a wide implementation of these systems. And on the practice side, practitioners are crying out for solution on how to, as you rightly ask, what are the entry points to KM and how to sustain KM journey. So hopefully in the near future, there would be more, the academic involved in practice projects and be able to, inject the theory and also demonstrate success in the KM trenches, so that you can bring the two camps closer.
And now if you think about the recent years, I mean, as we know, knowledge management, it's a very burgeoning, emerging field, and a lot of developments are happening all the time, both in terms of the research as well as the practice. So what do you think are the key recent trends of the couple of recent years in KM?
Okay, I think three major areas are going to impact KM in a big way. First one is cloud computing, which I believe will turn knowledge into cloud-based knowledge services. And by that, I mean that everybody, not just IT people, but business people, will be able to provide their knowledge and research services in the cloud. They'll be able to orchestrate that service. They'll be able to provide, to sell that service. Equally, they'll be able to acquire that service. In some of my seminars, I actually talk about how that's being done, and there are already marketplace for trading such services. Second is, KM is going to be influenced heavily by digitization. A lot of our assets is being digitized. So, in terms of tangible assets, we really have to sit back and rethink about, the speed and the areas in which we need to codify and how we actually organize our digital repositories. The third area is, as I said, big data. Companies will hopefully soon realize that in addition to all the good practices and the lessons learned that they have internally generated, wow, there's another pot of gold they're sitting on, and that's the data that they have been accumulating. If they start to build up the data science expertise, to start collecting, analyzing, and deriving actionable knowledge out of that big data, they will find that there's a new source and hopefully a new revenue of opportunities.
All right. Thank you very much, Eric.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity.